Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the Byonic hockey steel blade review. Now, there's two blades in here. There's a super polished and the coated stainless, which is the gold ones here. I'll show those in a second, but I want to show first the different heights of the blades that I have reviewing here. One of the benefits of Byonic is that they claim lighter weight, which saves up to 220 pounds of lifting per game because of less weight on your steel. Now, the Bionics, as you can see, the gold compared to the Hyperglides, there is more steel there, but compared to the step, which is below, which is about the same height as LS4, you would have that weight savings there. Personally, I haven't noticed a difference between going from the step and the Bionic in terms of fatigue at the end of a game, but it's kind of a really hard measurement to judge. I 100% believe in Nick, who is the creator of Byonic, and his math that it makes sense, but personally I haven't noticed that difference. So with that said, we'll move on to looking at the blades themselves. So now I'll give a quick overview of why I've been using a bunch of different blades. When I got my CCM FT1s, they came with the Hyperglide, and before that I was using LS2. When I got the Hyperglide, I noticed right away a huge difference on the ice I play on, which is really bad. It's an old rink and it's really soft and terrible ice. Within about 10 minutes of skating, I noticed my blades start to kind of get caught up on the ice a lot. It feels like they're digging in too much, but also it feels like there's too much snow buildup on them. Now, digging in, you could go to a shallower hollow, but I like the current hollow I'm on for everything basically, except when on this specific ice when it gets bad. Now, when I went to the Hyperglide, I noticed that I didn't really have that issue with my skates anymore. Basically, the feeling is when you're just skating along and your upper body keeps going forward, but the blades there's too much grab basically with the snow buildup and there's not enough glide that your feet kind of lag behind and your upper body kind of feels like it's jerking forward. With the Hyperglide, I noticed that issue was kind of mostly remedied. And it was I was really surprised at it and realized that the Hyperglide moniker and performance benefits weren't just kind of a gimmick, and it was actually a real benefit. With that said, I noticed I had to sharpen my skates every 2 to 3 skates with the Hyperglide, and that was pretty frustrating. The steel is far too soft. Every puck, every stick, every time you use it, I would notice my edges were getting less sharp and less consistent, and I was really not confident on my edges and stopping and starting hard against the boards or cutting hard on the ice. I was feeling that I was falling far too often and getting these sharpened too much. Because of that, I went with Step Steel. I know there's Step Steel Black and Step Steel V Steel. My local shop only had this step steel, and it's just a stainless step steel. I noticed right away that my edge consistency was way better. I was going from 2 to 3 times on the ice for sharpenings to, let's say, 4 to 8, depending again on how you play. But I found that my edges were far more consistent. I was much more confident on stopping, like hard stops and hard turns. But I noticed that jerking motion on when I was skating with the upper body moving forward while the skates kind of lag behind because the steel was getting kind of stuck on the ice. Another thing I noticed was how the blades were kind of rusting at the top. That happened on my goalie step steel as well. After about 4 skates, I had to retighten the nuts on the goalie one, and I noticed that there was rust on it already, which is kind of a little alarming. So I have to give props to CCM in that regard, where there was no rust on the CCM skates at all. Now in comes Byonic. Byonic is a company that's pretty local to me. I got the opportunity to try the Super Polish, which was offering the gliding abilities of Hyperglide with the edges or the edge consistency of the step steel. When I put these on, I tried the stock profile, quickly went back to my quad 1, but the edges and the gliding ability of these Byonic Super Polished has been phenomenal. I was unbelievably blown away and really, really happy when I used these blades. I regained the glide of the Hyperglides, but I gained, I think, even better edge consistency than the step. Again, I would say now it's about 6 to 10 or 6 to 12 skates between when I need to get these sharpened, compared to a few less with the step and much, much more frequent sharpenings with the CCM. So Byonic offered that extra gliding ability as well as the very, very consistent edges and holding its edge much longer. So I'm a huge fan of that. Again, I didn't really notice the weight savings. Again, I believe in the math, but I just don't really notice it, and I would probably prefer a little bit higher or taller steel just so you get a little bit more life out of them. With all Byonic blades, they come with a 910 profile, and that's just to give you a bit of a like it kind of lifts your heel up a bit, so it feels like you're on a bit of a forward pitch. I use a quad 1 profile, which gives me a 6 foot on the toe compared to a 9 that's on these. Personally, I like less toe because I find with more, it kind of stops me from cutting in as hard as I want because the blade kind of hits the ice first and kind of pulls you forward. The idea with the longer at the back and the longer the blade profile, so like say a 13 foot, you're going to get less agility because there's more steel contact, but you're going to get a lot more stability in your long strides and for a straight line. So I like how they give you an option or they give that profile stock. Gives you a bit more heel to work with if you do want a profile, but I think it's slightly better just a straight up 10 or 9 foot profile. Coated stainless, which are these gold ones here, come in a bunch of different colors. There's pink, red, blue, I think I've seen green, and there's these gold. Now, a lot of people I've seen some comments about these, how people think they're kind of overly flashy or not really worth it. A main target for these are kids. Now, I know a lot of kids that have seen this have been pretty happy with it and amazed and want to know more. You don't want colored steel, then you don't want colored steel. You can get the super polish, which will give you even more performance, in my opinion, with the gliding ability. These are just kind of a nice option, giving you an option of choosing something else and to be a little more flashy if you're that person. For me, the gold kind of just goes with my skates. They're yellow tacks, but it's kind of close enough. And I wanted to try the gold compared to the super polish to see if there was any performance differences. I haven't been able to use the gold on the really, really bad ice that I'm always on because it shuts down for the summer. But I have used it just kind of in one blade and this one in the other. And I have noticed at the end of the game that the super polish does glide better towards when the ice gets rougher. A lot of companies or people say don't stone the finishes because it kind of rubs off. And as you can see now, and same with the black and same with the black down there. Now I stone it because I'd rather a better edge than a fancy looking steel. It doesn't matter to me what it looks like. I just care about the performance. So again, I'd stone these and I stone my super polished all the time just to make sure I have that consistent edge and the edge I want. So again, personal preference, but for me, I'd rather better edges than the perfect look. So one of the nice benefits of Byonic steel is it comes at a slightly lower price point than the step steel does. And I'm pretty sure than LS4 and 5 and 3 and 2. For the super polish, it's $89.99 Canadian. I paid that for the step steel and it's not the super polish. I think the V steel is like $130. I'm not positive, but I think that's what I was quoted on. The coated finish right here is $99, which again just gives you a little bit more options for colors, but there is an extra process. I think at $89.99 for the super polished is a great value. You get the performance of the Hyperglide, but with the edge control of step. Now you do lose some of that blade height, but I personally, between these two, I'm going to go back to this all the time. If I had to buy a set right now, I would buy a set of Byonics. I know a lot of people want black steel and they're mentioning black steel in comments. So Byonic has teased on Instagram a new coating coming in the future, so be sure to check that out. I will link that in the description. Overall, I am extremely impressed by Byonic and would very much recommend this steel for anyone looking for aftermarket steel and to replace the stock steel. I think the stock steel in CCM is pretty bad. Bauer's getting better with the LS5. LS4 was better, but the LS2 was again very bad, very soft. You lose your edges really quickly. Byonic is a really nice option out there if you don't want to go the step route, and it does give a little bit lighter option, as you can see with all the pieces out. They do offer an edge for the Bauer holder. I don't have edge skates right now, so I don't have a set of edge ones, but they do offer an edge blade. So if, again, step was having some issues with edge, or it's harder to get step because of edge. So Byonic is an option for that as well. Last, really quickly, some of the shops that are selling Byonic come with this nice skate pouch. I believe it's a $10 accessory otherwise. Just a place to put your previous or your old steel. That way, throw it in your bag. That way, if you do have any issues on a game, you can just swap it out really quickly. So a nice little accessory there for that. Overall, again, I can't recommend this enough. I'm a huge fan of Byonic's blades, and I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. They're giving a bunch of options and colors. They're giving you super polish finish here, but at a better quality than CCM. And personally, I think a better quality than the step without the rusting issues. So I really, really recommend checking out Byonic steel. I'll also do a write-up of this, a written review with pictures, so you can see the kind of height differences, and I'll show all the weights there. But that's about it for this. If you have any questions, leave them below. So again, thank you very much for Nick and Byonic for sending me this steel for me to try and to use and to do a review on. That's about it for this. Again, I'd really recommend them. And finally, I hate to say this, but remember to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. The links are in the description. It just helps me get more stuff like this so I can do reviews on and talk about more gear. That's it. So thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.